2004. Although it might look perfect here, it has kind of a low saddle. And the string action's kind of high. That means today we'll be starting a neck reset. Before starting it, I want to look at the dome. I'm going to measure and calculate the deflection that the strings give the soundboard. I'll also be looking at the saddle height. The saddle's only 2 millimeters above the wooden bridge, which usually isn't a problem, but the pins are set back from the saddle so far away that it doesn't appear to have much of a break angle, which a customer would like to have. So he'd like a taller saddle, a neck reset, just better, brighter tone, and it's about due for one. It's over 20 years old. So let's pull the strings off and see. We'll measure that dome behind the bridge again and we'll deduct where it is without string tension to where it was with string tension, and that'll tell us what our deflection is. It's not that big of a deal that we know what that is, but it's good to know if it's a real floppy top or a real stiff top that doesn't move very much. Oh, this saddle was a bear. Couldn't even get it out, really. You don't want to be real careful when you've got a stuck saddle. I like using a piece of that sheet metal so that when I push the end pullers and rock it and cantilever it out like that, I'm not pressing down on the wood, because that piece of steel that the end cutters are made out of will dent the wood quite badly. So we got the composite material saddle out. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick 2 of these black purflings in there to raise the saddle height by 1 full millimeter. And that'll give me an idea of where I'd like the saddle to be when we're all said and done with the project. There, that looks better already. See how far away the pins are from the saddle? The pinholes? It's not always like that, but on this guitar it is. So, put these strings back in. I noticed there's one bridge pin that doesn't look the same as the others. All right, so we've got a soundboard dome of 40 thousandths, give or take, with no string tension, and 50 thou with string tension. So we've only got 10 thousandths of an inch deflection. It's something to keep in mind when we're deciding on that final neck angle. We can overset it a little bit if it was, a real floppy situation. We've got over 3 millimeters, almost over 3.5 millimeters of string height now with this 3 millimeter tall saddle. Yeah, it's 2.9 millimeters with those shims under it. When we're done, we'll make a new bone saddle. So on a Martin guitar, a neck reset, it's pretty straightforward. You pull the 15th fret. If it's a 14th fret to the body, you pull the 15th fret. If it's a 12th fret to the body, pull the 13th fret. There'll be a little void behind the dovetail. In the neck pocket, behind the dovetail, there's a little space. And that's where we'll access that void by drilling 2 holes in the fret slot. When we're done, we'll replace this fret and we'll cover up our holes. And I've got a new steamer to show you guys today. It has a very small needle. It's about half the diameter of the Stumac needle. So go in about 7 millimeters from the edge with the smallest drill bit, 1/16 of an inch drill bit, and you want to point that drill bit slightly towards the center. So we're going to angle it, just a 15-degree angle or something like that. Not much of an angle, but you need it needs to be like a V when it comes together down at the bottom. I'll just use a longer drill bit here just to make sure there's nothing holding my steam needle back. Sometimes there's a gob of glue down in there or something like that. And there it is, my new Bissell Steam Shot. It's got the driest steam ever. Not a single drop of water coming out the end of that tip. The StewMac neck steaming tool has a real long rubber hose. Or maybe that's my rubber hose that I put on there. For whatever reason, it creates a lot of condensation in the hose. Alright, so I'm heating up the fretboard extension with the silicone heat pad plugged into that router control, so I can dial back the voltage. And I'm warming it up from the bottom side. I also had a little iron on the top side, so I'm warming it from the top and bottom. But anyways, guys, this way of heating up the fretboard extension with the heat from the bottom and the top, I don't know if it's authorized by anybody over there at Martin, but since I've been doing it this way, I haven't had one splinter of spruce or rosewood give me any sort of problems. And just look at the dry steam coming out of this Bissell Steam Shot. No condensation. This is my first time ever using this thing. I wasn't quite sure what was going on here. There was steam shooting out the sound hole because, you know, the truss rod's in that area there, and there's a hole there for the truss rod to come through. So tons of steam was shooting out into the sound hole. The whole guitar was filled with this real, almost like a fog. Never seen it like this before because I've always had that real wet steam. Anyways, I just did it like 2 or 3 times like that upside down, and then I moved it over here and put the neck removal jig over the guitar. One more shot of steam on either side through each hole, and I could see that the neck was like completely ready to come off already. Like, that was the quickest neck pull of my lifetime. Thank you, Bissell Steam Shot. I love you. And I think next time I'll just lay the guitar on the bench, like over on its side, and shoot the steam in while the guitar's laying on its side. Because I'd hate for the body to fall right off the neck when I didn't have a hold of it, have it like fall on the ground or something. It'd be better if it was all leaning on the bench. Okay. So I kind of calculated how much material I wanted to remove from the tip of the heel, and it looked like 0.6 of a millimeter. I don't know what that is in fractions or decimals, but I'm just working in millimeters with this neck reset. I calculated that I wanted to remove, theoretically I would, to lower the action to where I'd like it to be, the factory action, I'd have to lower the saddle 2.2 millimeters. And that's just hypothetical. That's just a number to write down on the page for calculating how much to remove. Okay, so my other measurement is the length of the heel, not counting the fretboard. So the length of the heel is 95 millimeters. And then the distance from the neck to body joint to the saddle is 323 millimeters. So we take the 2.2 millimeters, which would have been the amount I would like to lower the saddle to get the desired action, multiplied by the heel, which is 95 millimeters, divided by the length from the neck to body joint to the saddle, which is 323 millimeters. And that's where I got the 0.6 of a millimeter, 0.65 millimeters. I'm looking at the side of the guitar where it meets the neck to see if it bulges out or if it is flat. And on this Martin, it is pretty darn flat. So the last couple neck resets I did had a real bulged side. Those were all really old antiques, but This one's 22 years old. So this one's still got a nice flat side where it meets the top of the guitar there. So on the treble side, I do the same thing. I mark off 0.6 of a millimeter, and I start with my Lexan caul, or my Lexan little stick, 80 grit stick it sandpaper, 50 swipes. So an even number of swipes on each side, and that leaves me a really proud, a small piece of material on the heel cap, in the middle of the heel cap, that I had to chisel off. And then I want to relief cut the inner part of the heel here. I don't want to touch that very outer edge of it with my chisel. I just want to chisel off the inner sections and then let this sandpaper hit the outer edges. As I push the neck up against the bench there, it tilts the neck back slightly, and this marries up the neck to the body again. So they're both the same shape. And it's a nice fit without too much gappage. I usually have a little bit of gappage, but I'll take a little paintbrush with a little bit of lacquer and go around the whole joint after it's glued back in. So now that I've reshaped the heel and got a new neck angle, I've got a little bit of a sloppy fit at the dovetail joint, and I'll make that a tight fit again with this shim. I'll just glue that on, and I've got these two cauls that'll hold it in place for about 4 hours for it to cure. I put 2 clamps. And I'll let that sit for 4 hours. After that, I remove the clamping cauls and let it aerate for a few more hours. As you can see, it's still a little wet. Then I'll set the whole guitar over here into the Proppers guitar workstation from Total Vice. And those are my Whittle Sticks 3D printed hold downs. You can get those on luthprints.com. If you want to get you a Total Vice, you got to go to totalvice.com. And you can see how I hold the heel tight up against the body with that scissor jack and a little thermoplastic caul. I also look at the string alignment with a dental floss, and I make sure the dental floss is going over into the pinhole and across the nut slot, the string slot in the nut. I'll also clean up the dovetail itself. And I will end up putting a little shim on the base side of the dovetail too. This is the dental articulating paper that transfers carbon over to the wood on the dovetail, so I can get it to fit real nice. It's a little bit of a tight fit after I glued in that shim. But we'll slowly work our way back to where it can get the entire neck all the way seated back into the body. It takes a little bit of sanding on both sides, the male side and the female side. It's not glued in yet, but I can see that the trajectory of the straight edge is riding a little above the top of the bridge, which for general purposes will work on almost any neck reset project. Something like that. just 1/8 of an inch above the wood. You can also, with the jig in the total vise in the workstation, you can put the strings back on and tune them up to full tension and check your action. Mine's 2.5 millimeters. It's exactly what I was asking for, which is about 65 thousandths, 70 thousandths of an inch, or 6/64ths of a fraction. Now that we know you've got the right angle, we can glue it back in with hot hide glue. I like to warm up the neck and the body. That gives me a little longer open time. There's another Total Vise product that I really like, the Total Vise number 7. Especially during a neck reset, I love to hold the neck in that vise. And I'll use my Lee Valley hide glue pot. A little plastic drip cup under the brush. The glue pot is steel, or some kind of weird alloy, aluminum, pewter looking thing. Holds heat real well. Has a little water reservoir in it and a little burner that it sits on. I work real fast because the glue gels up real fast, and you don't want that to happen before you get the two parts together. So it's, by the time you've done your sandpaper pulls and you've tested the neck angle 6 or 7 times, you get pretty quick with putting it together. And then to hold down the fretboard extension while the glue is curing, I use 2 bar clamps at the 15th fret, 1 C clamp at the 17th fret, and then those are 1/4 inch red oak cauls with radiused bottoms. That way the pressure goes to the outside edge of the fretboard. I'd love a set of cauls that go right over each fret and put 100% even pressure all the way throughout the entire extension, but I've never had the opportunity to sit back and make one of those. So I'd probably have to make several for different string lengths. But anywho, it's the next day, so we can remove the clamps and test out our work. It should be the same as it was before I glued it in. With some of these really old antique guitars, it changes though. This Martin, I can trust that it's going to give me a pretty predictable result. A full-size, somewhat newer guitar. It's the 12th fret to the body guitars that seem to give me the most problems. So we can put the strings on it. I haven't made the new saddle yet. We'll just use this, the one that's been shimmed, as the original saddle. I never removed the strings from the peg head. They've always been wrapped around the little tuner buttons this whole time. And they're 12 through 53 gauge strings. We'll just give it a real quick test for you. And then we'll work on that, putting that. Okay, that action is actually just a little bit low. So I'm going to pick out a piece of bone for the saddle. I'm going to make it even taller than that one was even shimmed and lower it down to where we need it to be. That way we won't have any shims in the saddle slot. That looks like a great piece right there. So I shaped the saddle and I cut it and thinned it out. It was way too thick. The saddle slot was like, what was it, 2.6 millimeters thick? My blanks are about 4 millimeters thick. I did do a little fret leveling up here at the body joint. It had a little hump on that fret. The 15th fret went back in, but it was a little proud. So I had to file it down and sand all the frets and polish them up. May as well do it. And then I hit the bevels with those micro mesh pads and they look beautiful. Now it doesn't rock. Doesn't rock anymore. It should be no problemo. We shouldn't have any string rattle or fret buzz or not any of that stuff with this one. And we didn't need to put a wedge under the fretboard extension, as far as I'm concerned. It went back on with a little bit of fall away. It wasn't sticking up or anything, so it fell down nicely right up against the soundboard, and I figured why shim it? Why put a wedge in there if it doesn't need one? We're not looking for perfection, just progress. And I got it to fit in there again. That's very nice. It's a little tall, but we're going to take it out and fine tune it, and we're going to polish it up. Tommy Emmanuel signature strings from Martin. 12 through 54. Tommy's choice. Right, I let it set overnight up to full tension with this new saddle in here, and it looks like I'm at 2.75 millimeters on the low E string, the bass side here. Anyways, I'm going to lower that down just to eyelash, put on the new strings, and be done with her. And then, look at this. We've got Steve Winwood's main Strat on the wall, looking for a little touch-up. The previous guitar tech mutilated the headstock while putting in the new locking Spurzle tuners, and I'm going to fix it up for him. That'll be next week, though. Let's listen to this Martin. Now here we have it, 2.5 millimeters exactly, which is about 65 thousandths of an inch, or 6/64 if you do fractions. We've got a really good break angle now and a nice saddle height, polished unbleached bone saddle. We've got a little bit of fall away right here towards the sound hole. The fretboard extension falls away from the string height. Keep it out of the way. And nice Tommy Emmanuel strings.